Howdy partners! Today we're gonna be rounding up cattle and rustling them bandits on the Great West Trail! Yee! Yee! Haw! Yes, welcome to No Friends Gaming, because you don't need friends to have a good time. Wait, is that seriously the tagline we're going with? Look at that script. We can't say that on the internet, we'll get cancelled. I'm just kidding. It's a blank sheet of paper. There's not even anyone here, it's just me. I'm all alone. All alone. Anywho, we're starting a brand new board game video series where we will be exploring strategies pertaining to various modern board games and then demonstrating the effectiveness of those strategies by defeating the solo mode AI on the hardest difficulty level. I'll be presenting solo playthroughs following each strategy overview video. Now, before I dive into solo-specific strategy, I will discuss more general strategy applicable also to multiplayer, in case you happen to have friends. So hopefully you'll still find these videos useful even if you don't play solo. We will assume that you already know how to play these games. There are many wonderful board game channels out there that can teach you the rules. Some of my favorites include Watch It Played with Rodney Smith, Gaming Rules with Paul Grogan, and John Gets Games with, John. But as for this channel, we're going to be all about pursuing excellence in board gaming skill. Now, I am only human and will by no means play perfectly, but that's part of the fun, so feel free to comment down below and tell me what an idiot I am. As gently as possible, since I do have tremendously low self-esteem. But please do share your own thoughts on strategy, and together we can be the best gamers we can be. So, without further ado, let's dive right into the game for this inaugural episode, Great Western Trail, by the great Alexander Pfister the Great. There is one central principle to follow when playing Great Western Trail, and that is to maximize your action efficiency. And you will typically do this by getting workers of mainly one type, and then hitting actions related to that worker type as much as you can. This is generally more effective than just getting a few workers of different types and then doing middling strength actions with them for much of the game. So you might max out on cowboys, and then go to the cow market, getting lots of points for cattle, as well as consistently high breeding values for profitable deliveries. Or you could max out on builders, and then go to neutral tile B to build lots of big buildings, getting points for those, as well as accessing the stronger actions on those buildings. Or you could max out on engineers, and then go to tile C and G to zoom your engine around the track, upgrading stations and claiming station master tiles as you go. The nice thing about this kind of worker specialization strategy is that because you're focusing on just the actions most efficient to you, you'll be making your way up to Kansas City more often and delivering more often. And that's great because deliveries are some of the most powerful actions in the game, awarding you lots of money, points, objective cards, and letting you unlock black discs to upgrade your player board. With that idea of action efficiency in mind, when you go to the labor market, I do recommend trying to purchase 2 workers at once. Yes, that's more expensive, but you'll be saving on actions that you can utilize elsewhere. With all that being said, it can be advisable to dip into workers not of your focus in order to shore up any weaknesses in your game plan. So you might get an extra cowboy in order to access cheaper cows, or you could get a builder in order to build mid-level buildings pertaining to your worker strat. Since it's generally too slow to upgrade to those buildings just one level at a time. If you get an additional engineer, then you probably want to gun right for this first station master tile here, and then you can appoint that engineer as station master and pivot to another strategy. Otherwise, you would probably want at least 4 engineers so that you can jump straight from one station to the next. Again, action efficiency. So for that reason, it's actually possible to pursue a hybrid strategy where you get cowboys and engineers or builders and engineers, and then deposit some of those workers as station masters, ideally from these spaces with on-game bonus effects, so you can claim those effects again later by rehiring workers of that type. So, how do we choose which worker strategy to follow? Well, that's going to depend on a lot of factors, such as which workers are even in the market and for what costs. But one of the main considerations is which personal buildings happen to be available in your game. So here are the buildings that would incentivize a cowboy strategy. So there's an additional cow market that you can go to. There's this tile, which is particularly strong for cowboys, allowing you to cycle through your deck to get to your more powerful cows more often, as well as curating your hand for supreme deliveries at Kansas City. And then this tile is a bit more niche. Generally, you want to be keeping your 3 value cows in hand rather than discarding them for that breeding value, but it can be nice later in the game when you have excess 3 value cows. Tile 12A is particularly good for a builder strategy, but builders are pretty strong already and don't have to rely on it to pull things off. I would say that a builder strategy generally wants to go for their number 10 building as early as possible, whether 10A or 10B, since it is the strongest action of all the buildings. Most of the other buildings you will build mainly for points or to tax players, that kind of thing. An engineer would really like to see these tiles. So these two in particular, this one's a bit weaker, but can still be nice to have if you can get to it. Other considerations for building. Well, you want to maintain a viable path of actions that are useful to you along the trail. So for example, if there's a couple of neutral buildings out there that you'd like to use, but they're too far apart given your limited movement, then you should place a personal building that you do want to use in between them so that you'll not start doing inefficient actions. You should also look at capitalizing on risk action spaces, since they are a great source of certificates as well as allowing you to cycle unwanted cows from your hand. It's especially nice to build tiles with further movement on these spaces, so you can make use of the risk bonuses without slowing down your action tempo. And of course, a number of buildings have taxes on them. So it's very good to build tile number 1, whether 1A or 1B, for its green hand early in the game to get a steady trickle of income from other players, as well as slowing them down. And you could also consider getting out tile 4A or 4B for its black hand. And that's particularly nice in a 4-player game when black hands are more profitable than green hands and there's more opponents potentially moving through these buildings. In general, you want to be looking at building tax buildings before areas where players will tend to spend their money. Since, for example, the labor market, if you place a tile just after it, players could simply spend all their money here and then have nothing left to pay you with. This game allows you to deliver to each city just once, except for the ones on either side of the game board. So you're really being asked to reach higher and higher breeding values to not be stuck delivering to the more paltry areas on the left. Also, you need to get to a breeding value of at least 10 in order to deliver to Chicago and unlock your first black disc. I would recommend that you try and do that by your second or third delivery, since those black disc upgrades are particularly potent. So to help get reliably high breeding values, there's a number of things you can do. You can get more cows into your deck, of course. You can make use of the risk action spaces, as already mentioned. And there are certain station master tiles that can provide you with permanent certificates. So these are reasons that you might want to get cows, build buildings, and advance your engine, even if you're not focusing on the workers associated with those actions. It's nice to advance your engine in order to save on delivery costs, as well as upgrade stations and appoint station master tiles, which, as we've mentioned, ideally would be from these worker spaces with on-game bonus effects. But also, if you've bought some workers not of your focus, just to supplement your strategy, then once they've outlived their usefulness, you can appoint those as station masters so as not to lose any action tempo as you go. Now, money is very tight in this game, and you should be looking for opportunities to get the funds that you need. One major way of that, of course, is to place the tax buildings, as mentioned. Also, I would definitely recommend you consider going to this Kansas City delivery space at least once for the $4. Yes, it will cost you 6 points at the end of the game, but you will more than make up for it by, for example, using that extra money to purchase 2 workers at once and getting more powerful actions sooner. Also, outlaws are a great source of funds. You can go to neutral tile D here to collect them, and when you get them may depend on your imminent funding needs, but I would start to consider them around $4 or so. You should really plan your expenses and know ahead of time how much you're about to spend, including any taxes that you may have to pay along your way. And that will inform whether you should stop to pick up an outlaw tile or, for example, take this double auxiliary instead of some other double auxiliary action. You should always track the cards left in your deck, and you can do this at any time by inspecting your discard pile. You want to be discarding cows in order to draw into ones that you may need for upcoming actions, and by the time you're approaching Kansas City, you want to have unique cows in hand to maximize your breeding value. So you might prioritize going to buildings that allow you to discard any duplicates that you happen to have in hand. It's generally better to purchase new cows when your deck has few cards remaining so that you'll shuffle them in sooner. On that note, if you are about to visit the cow market, you might actually forego discarding a card that would force you to redraw and reshuffle your deck. Because if you then go to the cow market and buy a cow, you'd be forced to draw through your entire deck again before reaching that juicy bovine goodness. Now for solo mode considerations. I generally find that a solo game lasts for about 30 rounds, and Sam has 15 cards in his deck, so you should expect him to play each of those cards twice. In particular, he has these two cards that will allow him to purchase new workers. So in general, Sam will make 4 new workers over the course of a game. In hard mode, Sam starts with 3 workers of his specialization, and so only needs 3 more to fill the row. And we want to prevent that if at all possible, because he'll score 4 points for the 5th and 6th worker, and his actions will become more powerful, and he'll get more movement, so we'll come up to Kansas City more often, make deliveries more often, and get lots of bonus points for those. So it's generally a good idea to compete with Sam for the workers of his specialization. And you could do this by making those same workers your own specialization. Or if there's just a couple here and there coming into the market, then you could appoint those as your own auxiliary workers to supplement some other strategy, and then eventually appoint them as station masters once they've done their part. Usually Sam will deliver 5 or 6 times by the end of the game. In hard mode he starts at Peoria, and so he will get up to Philadelphia for his 5th delivery or to New York for his 6th. You would have to go pretty fast around the trail to prevent that 6th delivery. If he does get to New York, then you might consider delaying the end of the game by a turn or 2 as he makes his way up the trail for the 7th time, and you may have some more powerful actions that you need to complete before the end of the game. Then you can make the final delivery and trigger the game end such that Sam doesn't quite make his 7th delivery. So to summarize, you should maximize your action efficiency generally by focusing on workers of just one type and then hitting actions related to that type as much as possible. It is advisable to do some other kinds of actions here and there, but sparingly. So get more cows to help improve your breeding value, get buildings to capitalize on risk action spaces, maintaining a viable path along the trail of actions you want to take, as well as taxing other players, and advance your engine to upgrade a station and claim a station master tile. You want to consider going to the Kansas City delivery at least once and trying to unlock your black disc at Chicago by your 2nd or 3rd delivery. You should plan your expenses and know ahead of time whether you should be stopping for an outlaw tile or getting money from opportunities like this double auxiliary action. And you should track the cards in your deck so you hopefully have the cows you need when you need them. In solo mode, you should plan around competing for Sam's workers so that he doesn't fill his row too quickly or too easily. And that's it for today's strategy overview. Please come join me in the next video where we will put these strategies to the test by challenging Sam on hard mode. Ooh.